How you doing, folks? You're watching Onward with Onrie Live, and I'm your host, Henri Compen. We're starting a little bit earlier today because this guest I am so excited to have on the show. Everybody, please welcome Alton Simpson to the Onward with Onrie show. How's it going, brother?
Good to be here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. You got a lot going on right now with a Kickstarter campaign and everything.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, all right.
Absolutely. Well, do us a favor. Tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Let's see. I'm a film guy who wanted to block out his script in case, for the opportunity when I get to pitch something. And I ended up doing Vampires in New Jersey, which is a vampires versus the mob comic book, like True Blood versus Sopranos. And, I put it in a store 3 years ago and it sold out like within a couple days. And it's been just growing ever since. And now I'm doing a Kickstarter. I'm up to 5 issues and I'm releasing the 6th issue with a bunch of variants by some really brilliant artists on the Kickstarter now. So that's, that's a little bit of what's going on right now.
And I've had the pleasure of reading the first issue. I'm also backer on your Kickstarter, which is currently up and running. And if you want to post a link at some point in the comments section, and I will definitely blast another shout out for your Kickstarter today. I have read the first issue, and I have always had this is a little secret.
Yeah.
That, I'm gonna say on the show so that everybody knows I got a vampire fetish.
Hey,
y'all can laugh at me about it. I'm not embarrassed. I'm coming out of the closet. I have a vampire fetish.
Woo!
I'm all about this shit. So yeah, it rocked my socks. It was a good fun book. I never really got into True Blood, surprisingly, but and Sopranos either. But this is kind of like a perfect blend of the two. The artwork is incredible in the book, by the way. I really love the detail.
Yeah,
yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you met your artist and how you guys all got hooked up and stuff.
Well, originally I posted online. Actually, now that I think about it, that's like the 3rd artist that I work with to get the book out to the first issue. Because I posted online after I tried working with an artist that I used for, some smaller stuff. I think he's in South America. And I wanted to do a comic just to see what a comic would be like of the first movie that I produced, that I wrote. It was in the Philadelphia Independent Film Festival that's streaming on Amazon now. It's called Who is Jose Luck? And it's kind of like a Usual Suspects type movie. So it's a low-level mob movie. And I said, well, I wonder what it'd be like if I could block out the scenes. And, when you're independent, there's some scenes you can't shoot that I could show in a comic. So I found an artist to do that. And his artwork was not like great. It was kind of uneven and I couldn't really do a lot with it, but that was the first artist I worked with. And then when I came up with Vampires in New Jersey, I asked him to do some of the initial pages. And my wife was also, a consultant, and my wife and partner in my media company. She looked at it and she goes, look, your idea for this vampires thing is really good. You need a great artist to get people to get into this. So she goes, just post online, find a place. So I actually if I can use the name Upwork, I posted there just in general, the tagline, because I've pitched it. I actually remembered the other day that I actually did pitch it when I went out to American Film Market shopping Jose Luck. But all I had was the tagline: Vampires versus the mob, True Blood versus Sopranos. And the guys that heard that said, well, Jose Luck is nice, but that vampires thing sounds interesting, but I hadn't written it yet. So I posted that information on Upwork, and the guy who drew Silver Surfer for Marvel that I didn't know at the time, Mahathir Buang is his name. He was like a super hot artist for like a year or two in the early 2000s. He liked it. He's like, wow, this is a great idea. I can see lots of things with this. You could do cons. I'm going to work for you. And he wasn't, of course, the cheapest person. But when my wife, who doesn't read comic books on a regular basis, but she knows like quality when she sees it, she saw his initial designs and she was like, this guy is creating like something totally different. This is the guy you need to work with. He actually created the characters, not created them. I created them, but he designed them. So like the look of the vampire Wanda over here, the haircut, the style of the clothes, and that influenced a lot of what her character is like. In the same with Karen on this side, Karen over here. There you go.
No, you got it. We got it right. Are you pointing? Yeah.
Karen Wanda, who's a good guy, and you don't know if it's a good guy, but it's a vampire. She's actually
she looks like the bad guy. I mean,
well, she is one of them. I mean, there's like a crew. It's like two crews because it's mob and then vampire crew and then the mob crew. And his design work, he actually like did not the line work, but the initial layouts for the first 3 issues. Then he disappeared and I completely lost him. And I had the money and everything because I didn't do Kickstarter or anything. We were financing this out of my pocket. And, I got an email from him. He was vacationing in Japan, but he got arrested, but he lost his passport and you can't get out without it was just a big thing. So I felt bad. I really did for the guy. And we never reconnected. Although when I looked at the work that he did, he made it easy for another artist to walk in and know what page. I mean, he literally had like, this happens on that page, all laid out. It was perfect. So and the funny thing about him, if you go on the internet and look for the greatest, I think it's the greatest comic myths or something. I finally researched his name and then I'm like, this guy was like a monster big artist. I can't believe that he even did the initial work with me because was really a big guy. In like number 8 in those myths was Mahathir Buang was drawing Silver Surfer for Marvel and I don't know, I forget who does Walking Dead, but a few Walking Dead issues.
Is it shit?
Is it IDW?
No, it's Image who publishes it.
Yeah.
Okay. But were you thinking about the artist?
Well, no, the artist was Mahathir.
Oh, okay.
It was crazy when you read the myth thing, it says he dropped out of sight on his Marvel contract. And Marvel was emailing him the same way I was. And then I saw that and I go, look, if he bailed on Marvel.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It happened. Sometimes shit happens to people.
And I think some of the artists I've worked with, they bite off more than they can chew. And then it gets heavy on them. And then they feel all that anxiety, which I try and take away from them. Because I work with an artist. I say, give me your milestones. You tell me what you can do. And you tell me how much it'll cost. And then I'll work with you. And I know everybody has a life and things come up and this, that, and the other thing. But, I try and pull them back to the milestone. So he dropped totally out of sight. And the second person who was on Upwork who wanted to work with me was Connor Cole, who's actually an animator for a big corporation we won't name on the West Coast who has, I think there's a mouse involved. And so, he's another guy who's busy with his day job. And then he does the vampire thing on the side. And he actually has done all 6 issues now, and it's taken a while because certain times a year, they call you. I mean, when you see all those names at the end of Marvel movies and Pixar movies, he's one of those names in there. So
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So he's busy, but what I've learned over time with him is, of course, he has a life too. And deadlines are made to be broken in a lot of cases. But once I put the first issue out, like I made it, I didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, I'm a film guy. My movies are streaming and they've been in film festivals and played in some, theaters at film festivals. What do I do with a comic? And I've been going to cons since 78. So I was one of the original geeks going, are girls going to show up for this one day? No, girls will never show up for this. So I'm living a dream now with all these crazy cons. But I took it to my local store, Ron's Comics in Mount Holly, New Jersey, where I go every Wednesday. I get my comics. I have to talk to Ron and his son Pat and kind of hang out and whatever. And I took it to him. I said, Ron, what do you think? And he looks at it and he goes, well, the paper's good. Like you made a quality product. The paper's actually good. So we'll put it in the store. So of course I was excited. I'm like, oh my God, I got a comic in the store. It's amazing. So 2 days later, a friend of mine texted me, Chuck Myers, actually. He texted me, he goes, dude, I went to the store to get your comic and it's sold out. He's like, it's not there. He's like, that's crazy. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. That's insane. So that was about 3 years ago. So since then, I've sold out multiple issues. I'm up to issue 5. I've done two shared universe series. One's Blackjack, a superhero whose powers change without his control. And the other is Werewolves of Brooklyn, which is a direct spinoff of Vampires, where you can hire this biker crew of werewolves to do whatever you need them to do. And fans have described it as like Sons of Anarchy meets The Howling. So all those books have gone into to Ron's and sold out multiple times over the past 3 years. I mean, that's like my ground zero place. Like literally, I'll take something there to test it to see if it will go elsewhere. They sell T-shirts with my stuff. They have people who subscribe. So then I'm like, wow, I got into one store. What should I do next? So then I started doing cons. And I've heard you talk to Mike about, you had Mike on 2 weeks ago about cons and what you go through at the cons, trying to make it to the table, and you're stuck in the corner, and they got big names over there, so the people are going over there, and it's a real battle. But what I learned at the cons was when I could break through. And by the way, I was across from Mike at Wizard World Philadelphia, my first big con, and I'm sitting there watching him go for 3 days. Amazing. It was like going to comic book class.
I don't doubt it. He's got so much passion for that.
Yeah, he would drive such a big crowd that the people at the back of the crowd who were facing him, who was across from me, would buy my comics.
That's fantastic. Wow.
So many people, they're like, well, while I'm waiting for Mike, what do you got? And I would pitch him and I would sell. So,
well, it's crazy because the reason why I had it took me so long to get here today was because I was on his show yesterday on this chat and draw, and I had multiple orders come in, and I had to take care of it.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Like he's extremely. I'll tell you, I think he's got a lot of passion for what he does. He really loves his job. He's really into it. I have an immense amount of respect for Mike Watson.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him. I mean, a lot of guys look at it like, oh, he's competition and he's this and he's that, but everybody did something. When I'm at a con, I look at each table, and some are more successful than others, but you learn something either way. If somebody's doing something that's not working, you look at it and go, well, I don't think that would work for me either. But if somebody's doing something that's working, you start saying, well, maybe I could try that. Now, I can't do what Mike does in the same way, but I learned techniques from him that
I think it's a different it's a different platform, because what's he doing? He's selling his art. He's selling himself. He's also selling his books.
Yeah.
But he's basically he's got a lot more to offer than us writers who are just writing a book and putting it out there. I think artists have a difficult job in the sense that they, when they come to cons, are getting commissions, and so they're drawing most of the time. So they're not really engaging. Right. But if you could be an artist and still find a way to engage, you're gonna fucking kill it, because people are so much more excited. We have nothing to offer other than our signature and a joke or two, and it's a little bit different. But you still pick things up from the presentation, from the way they do things, from the way things work out. All these things matter, and we absolutely are learning a lot from each other. One thing I wanted to tell you that I'm already learning from you is what you were saying earlier about your artist disappearing off the face of the map and then showing up. Your reaction to it is the right reaction, and it just reaffirms that whole idea that we're so reactive, especially now when we come across a news article or something like that. With everything that's going on, we automatically got to post it, spread our opinions, and say everything that we got to say, which is understandable. We're all going through an emotional ordeal. But we also have a habit of being very reactive. If someone sends an email, we got to respond right away. If the phone is ringing, we must pick it up. Sometimes it's better to just wait, because you don't know what's going on in other people's lives. Right. And that's especially true at conventions. Someone might give you a dirty look and walk right past you, and you might take it personally, but you don't know what's going on in their head. Maybe they just found out that they had diarrhea and they just sharted, and you're giving someone an awkward look because you're embarrassed. You just don't know. Anything is possible. So yeah, that, you know, just patting you on the back there, telling you I approve your message.
Well, you got to try and make it work regardless of how it goes. You start out with best intentions and it's going to go the way it's going to go, but you know where you want to end, you know, so try and correct the course and get it to where you want it to as much as you can. So I did a good number of cons, and what happened, well, first I did Comic Cons, and then the comic guys would look at me and say, you know, maybe you ought to be doing like horror cons. So then I started, I was at one con in Atlantic City, and the guys who do New Jersey Horror Con were walking by me, and they were going to use the exact same place because it's in the Showboat. They were going to use the exact same place like 6 months later. And they were like, dude, we're doing the first New Jersey Horror Con. Could you please come? This is perfect. Like, your whole setup is perfect. So then I started doing those, and it's kind of like you're refining your audience as you go. You know, you're learning, this is my market, this is my, you know. And I did equally well, I would say, at both. And then I know when you were talking about the cons before, the networking for some of the cons outweighed the money I could make, because I was making connections that were enhancing my knowledge base and what I could do with the comic. But the key thing that happened for me was people would get my comic at one of the cons and go home, contact me on Facebook. And this was like the first or second issue. And they would say, dude, I want to get the rest of your issues. You know, and I'd say, well, I'll mail them to you. And they go, you know, it would be cool if you could put it in my local store. So I would say, well, where's your local store? And they'd be like, Jay and Silent Bob's in Red Bank. And I'd say, okay, isn't that Kevin Smith's store?
Yeah.
Like, and my wife would be like, oh, they're people, just go up there and talk to them. You know, you have customers that want them to carry your book. So I never watched Comic Book Men because I got rid of cable right around the time it came on. So I never watched it. So I didn't know Mike how famous.
Either make comics or watch TV.
Yeah,
decision we made,
I didn't know Mike and those guys were, you know, they're TV stars.
Yeah.
So I went up to the store and I gave Mike my little pitch, and he was like, dude, Kevin loves independent people. We love working with, you know, indie people. You're a Jersey guy. We're going to put your comics right up front. And I called back like a month later, 6 weeks later, and all my comics had sold out. So I've sold out at Jay and Silent Bob's in Red Bank, all issues probably three times over the last year and a half. So it's been like that, going in each store based on usually somebody local, you know, asked for it, or they went in. One guy actually went into the store and told him, he told me to call him. I called him. You know, as an indie guy, you know, they're not hurting. I mean, if you're in business for like 10 years doing comics, you're doing, you know, like,
you know what's up. You know what's up.
I know what
you can't fail. You can't fail for a straight 10 years.
Right. So when a guy like me calls, and usually I try and walk in because I like to show the comic so they can hold it, so they can see it's a quality product. You're selling it. Once you hold it, you go, well, this is like, you know, it looks pretty professional. It's not just some, you know, whatever. So he told me to contact them. They were like, you know, and then he emailed me back or texted me or whatever on Facebook. And I'm like, dude, you know, I think they're doing okay. And he's like, what? I'm going in there. So he literally went in with I think he had the first 3 issues and said, you got to look at these. And they emailed me back and they're like, oh, we're so sorry. Your stuff's quality. We want you in the store. That's down at down at Mays Landing, level up entertainment. I've been there free comic book day twice. I was supposed to be there this free comic book day, and all my books have sold out. And then for people that are starting, I usually get into a store on consignment, and that's different for every store because every store runs their business however they want to run it. I started out consignment with them, but I've been so successful that they're just like, bring your books in.
They order, yep. And then they just
know you have people who want your book. Every time you put a book in here, it sells out. So I've been lucky in that respect that over time, once I got the one book in there, then I could get in Blackjack, which is a shared universe book. And then I could get in Werewolves of Brooklyn, which is a spinoff of Vampires. I'm also working on Witches of Westchester. And after that, I think if I do 4 series, 10 issues each, I think that's a nice body of work. So that's what
and this is just your comic book stuff. You've directed movies, you've directed commercials, you've done all kinds of stuff. But you're also a doctor, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, my background has been finance. I did insurance when I got out of college, sales, and then I did mortgages in the 90s into the early 2000s when mortgages were, booming. And I got my MBA, I think, around the time of my first kid. It's 2005. And then I just said, well, a good job for an old guy is a professor to teach. So that was kind of my end game. And I got a doctorate in management of information systems. So
you're a doctor and you're making 4 comic books.
Well, that's the funny thing, Henri. They go hand in hand, and here's how I explain why.
I'm sure they do.
When you're writing, and I've always loved comic books, but I never thought I would do a comic book. Like I never said to myself when I was a kid, "Oh, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby." What they were doing was so magical to me that I never imagined I could do anything.
They were the greatest rock group in comics.
Right. I mean, it was just so it was beyond, you're thinking, it's like a kid who picks up a guitar and then Jimi Hendrix is there. And you're thinking, I love guitar, but what he does is just another planet, But so with my doctorate, when you do something that ridiculous, and I don't recommend it because it's torturous, you once you get your research subject, you write and write and write about 100 to 200 pages. You hand it to your chair. They run everything, and then the committee works under the chair. If the chair likes it, it'll get to the committee. If the chair doesn't like it, he sends it back to you, tells you it's crap, and you start over. So that happened to me probably for like a year, 2 years. And obviously I'm frustrated. And then I thought to myself, as a filmmaker, I always held back when I wrote, because as an indie person, you're writing and you go, well, I can't afford an explosion here, so I'll put this in, like something happened. But if I was, Richard Donner doing a Lethal Weapon movie, you know what I mean? I'd be in LA and I'd make the whole building drop, But I don't have that. So you always think, how can I shoot it myself? Because I shot, edited, and scored most of the stuff that I did with other people. But I mean, that I know how to do that. And I'm not the best editor, but you teach yourself things. You got the internet now. You can teach yourself anything. I know people are using it for all kinds of ridiculous stuff, but you really could teach yourself a lot of things technically just by learning it and then doing it over and over and over.
So how did you, okay, finish your story. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll get to the point.
Yeah.
My wife's not here to tell me to get to the point.
No, it's okay. I'll play your role.
Yeah. She's watching upstairs.
I'm not as beautiful as she is.
She'll be down in a minute. Oh, that's very good.
Yeah. See, I got to work that charm. Yeah. Send her to my website to buy.
So you get frustrated writing, but you get better at writing. So I said, I want to write something kind of fantasy oriented that I don't have to worry about budget. Like I could write whatever happens. So that unleashed my thought processes for writing. And as I went along the way, my wife was like, well, when you're trying to get your doctorate, you got to kind of be friendly with your chair. But my chair is a guy that's so smart. He was working on an algorithm for diabetes for an app. And I'm not giving anything away because I think it's public now, that you would be able to look at the app and it would tell you how much insulin you used based on you looking at the app.
Oh, wow.
So he's super smart. Like I didn't even I got him by default, I just ended up with him. I'm like, this guy's like so smart. But along the way, I started, kind of bonding with him because you do it over a good number of years. And I sent him the first issue of Vampires. And he emails me back. He's like, your work is coming along. You're going to be a doctor. But there's something about that vampire comic book. I just like it. There's something about it. So that was the thing that helped me bond with him. So after that, I said, well, maybe I have something here because I'm reaching somebody. I don't know when's the last time the guy read a comic book, but he liked the imagery and the storyline.
I'll tell you personally, I liked it so much after reading that first issue that I emailed you right away as soon as I read it. And I've got just in the amount of books I have on my desk right now it's so intimidating and scary, and because I keep meeting all these creators, and I've known a lot of these guys on the floor for a long time, but like we just never have a chance to really talk. We're all too busy hustling, get busy living or get busy not selling comics, but but it's like now I'm kind of getting through it. But again, like I said, once I saw the artwork and I backed your Kickstarter and everything, I asked you for the PDF so that I could read it in time for the show. But really, it wasn't even for the show. It was just I'm genuinely interested in what you're doing, and I love it. I can't wait to read the other issues.
Yeah, I wanted the first issue to hook you, but also set up like what's going to happen next in your mind. So every issue I try to do that. And to me, I wrote the first 3 issues like a movie. So it's like 3 parts of a movie with a big, ending for that arc of the story. And I just thought to myself, I've been through movies where they might have been good movies, but they do too much exposition or too much of this or too much of that. And I wanted like every 5 minutes, because when you write a script, and I write as scripts, which is kind of wacky. I don't write like a book. I write it like a script. So I'm lucky my artists look at it and they can look at it and take that description and make it into something. You know what I mean? Because I kind of leave it open because I want the artist to feel like we're working together, not that I'm paying him or her and they're cranking it out.
Yeah, because I don't think we can do that. We can't afford to do that.
Feel like this is like us as a team creating something original, different, together. So that's worked a lot with almost every artist I work with, because I don't usually, even the covers for some of the issues and the variants that I'm doing now on Kickstarter, I don't, bark orders. I just say, these are the characters. What do you think? To see what their imagination does. And of course, with Connor, he's got a very regimented day job doing, the interiors for vampires. Is the time for him to, fly his freak flag, to do something different, and enjoy himself. He's doing it. Yes, he's getting paid, but he's doing it to get out that creativity that he has inside. So that's
I rein in my artists and I beat them.
Well, it depends how far out they go.
Well, what I've done is over the years, in order to make sure that they fall in line, I send them sticks in the mail, and there's a little note in there that says "Beat yourself with this." And that's how I keep them motivated.
I like that.
You let them run off you let those artists get too far away.
Yeah.
You'll regret it. No, I think that's important though, to give them that freedom, especially with somebody who has experience. You're not working with amateurs, and your book is very professional looking. I mean, the coloring on it is gorgeous. It sets the right tone. You're using all the right tones for everything, and you come across books that are muted, murky, and with a book like this, red has to be bright and feel like a blood red. If you make it too dark and murky, it's like you lose the audience. And another thing I wanted to say too is the women got to look sexy. I don't care what anybody says. The women have to look attractive. If they don't look attractive, you're going to lose the audience. And it's nothing against women personally or anything like that, but there is sex appeal. Just like when we draw men, men have to, look sexy in the eyes of a woman too. So they got to be muscular and things like that. I mean, that's what they aim for. That's what, comics is. It's that exaggeration
is a lot with a visual art form like film and comics. So
and just and then I'll kick it back to you in just a sec. But I recall very recently, like maybe in January, I was at a comic shop doing a signing because it was still in the off season, and I needed to get out there, and I was jonesing to sell something. So I was at a comic shop, and I saw a Vampirella book, and I opened it up, and Vampirella she has no feminine features. Like, she's flat chested. I'm not kidding.
Who drew that?
I don't know. I ain't calling them out on the show.
Yeah.
I don't. And to be honest,
wildly round. I mean,
you would find it very. It's like
it's kind of weird.
And she was just didn't have any curvature at all. It's like she's got to look sexy. It's Vampirella. It's not just
that's her thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when it's your thing and not a licensed thing, you're in more control. You're not going to allow stuff like that to happen.
No, and with the Kickstarter, I'm working with artists that have made more. I'm not going to say sexually explicit, but more visually sex appeal pictures.
Hey, I got nothing wrong with that. That is how you sell it.
I didn't think about it a lot at the beginning, and then I started seeing what they were giving back to me, and they're very valid interpretations of the characters. I know Kara Nicole and Alfred Trio did. Well, first of all, I love Kara. I met her at the C2E2. I just happened to be there to meet with a publisher.
You were right. You were right in my backyard, homie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Chicago is my hometown. Anytime you come to C2E2 now, you gotta let me know in advance.
Yeah, it was crazy because a couple of the publishers are like, we don't want you to send our stuff. We want you to go to a con and see us at the con. So I thought to myself, I said, well, then maybe I should just go to a con because, I've worked for GE, Xerox, and GM in mortgages and finance. And I traveled for that stuff. And I'm like, I got it. This is a business. This is my business. I should just travel to do my business. So not knowing what the rest of the year was going to be like, I went to C2E2 to in-person pitch, the comic. I didn't get a deal, but I made, again, some good connections and people know at least what I'm doing and now I'm out here. But Kara just happened to be there as Lady Death. And previous to that, Phil and Heather of Comics and More in New Jersey connected me with her and a bunch of artists that are on the Kickstarter. And I talked to her online, but she's like a cosplay artist from like another planet. And when you meet her, it's like, meeting Marilyn Monroe or
she really is. She's sensational.
Like, it just blows you away. She was dressed as Lady Death. And I walked over to her and I started talking and she was like, lean in a little bit because she's so method. They used to call that method acting in the 50s. She had the contacts with the clear eyes. So she couldn't even see like 2 feet in front of her. So I had to lean in and talk to her. And we literally started talking about business and marketing. And it was like talking to, Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. I mean, there's such a...
She does not fuck around.
It's such a brilliant mind in there too. Yes. I constantly tell people, because I know guys look at her online and they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, if you knew what was going on in there,
she's got her shit figured out. Yeah, and her and I have had conversations. She's been on the show and she's coming back. She's found a way to get herself back on the show next week, which is great. Yeah, I have a lot of respect.
She's a machine. But after I met her, I was like, this is really going to be like a different level of what I've been doing with her interpretation of Wanda, the vampire, and then just working with her. And then Alfred and her just sent me a cover out of the blue. Like they literally were like, we have these two characters, and they actually, these two in the first issue, they have a scene that I didn't even put in there where obviously one bites the other. Well, that's what the cover that they did is.
Yeah, and it's a sexy cover.
Yeah.
That is so sexy.
But that's the bite that didn't happen that you don't see. I left some stuff out to make you think about it. But it's just it's been an amazing thing to see if you leave it open to artist interpretation, what they can come up with.
Absolutely.
And those drawings for the Kickstarter, I mean, they're like it's like the best artwork I could have ever even envisioned for my characters and ideas. It's just like every time they turn something in, Steph Wilson, Wendy Stainer, let me rattle off the names here.
Please, by all means.
Chris Mad, obviously Kara and Alfred, Jim Noble and Alfred Lee, and CB Zane. Oh my God, CB Zane, he actually did 4 sketches and he told me to pick 2. And I kept looking at those other 2 sketches. And then, once I got halfway through the Kickstarter, I was going to need more. So I was just like, CB, I know you're busy, because he was doing his Kickstarter for Into the Suck, which is his thing. And I said, could you finish those 2 sketches? And he was like, oh yeah, if you want. So I'm releasing those too. It's prints, and I have a print here. Just amazing. This is one of CB's.
CB's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and then I just ordered prints so I could see the pictures big, and I'm blown away. So it's really done a lot. And Connor turned in issue 6 about a week ago, and we prepared them for the shipping. I'm preparing, for the end of the Kickstarter. I got all my PDFs ready to print, and I write ahead because I don't want people to think if I have an opportunity to keep the story going with that artist, I'm not ready. So I know he's busy. So literally every time he finishes, I have 3 more chapters, 3 more issues ready. And I don't know, when it's like when you finish a project, you're exhausted, your mind's blowing. Sometimes you need like time. All I say to him is, and I don't push him, I say, when you're ready to do more, let me know. And
you know what? Man, I did the exact opposite.
Really?
I messaged my
artist.
I'm like, get to work, motherfucker.
Different things work with different people. But I'm ready. Whenever it's like a pop fly. Yeah. You're standing out there and you got to be ready for it. So I gave him the next 3 issues, and he started working on it. I actually got 2 pages of issue 7 already. When he's going, I got to keep him going. You know what I mean? So, and it's
consistency. That consistency too is good for the artist because it provides a stable income for him, and keeps everything rolling. Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. So, how many issues are you planning with this series?
For vampires, I'd like 10. I think if you could do a solid run with the same artist for 10 issues, I think that says something.
I agree. Oh, it totally does. What about your other books? Are you since they're all like intertwined?
Well, I got lucky. Connor's on the West Coast, and then actually had another artist. Here's a crazy story. A portrait artist named Simon Bennett in the UK in London saw vampires on Comixology. The first issue's on there. He downloads it. Now he's a portrait guy. So if you're, Duke Henri and Duchess Henri, you go to him and he does a serious, English portrait of you.
Well, Duchess Henri is going to be one ugly bitch. I'll just
I mean, Mrs. Henri.
Yeah, Mrs. Henri, she's going to be a hoe. All right. Yeah. I laugh at myself. I got what you were saying. Go ahead.
But she, he's always wanted to do like Jack Kirby style work, comic work. So he started literally sending me covers. I'm excited. I want to work in comics. What do you think of this? And I'm looking at the covers. I'm like, he ended up doing, if I have one here, he ended up doing a good number of covers for me. Here's one. Is issue 4. And my wife's like, are you going to pay this guy? And I'm like, of course I'm going to pay him. This is New Jersey. That's actually in Wildwood, the beach resort. I worked down there.
That's a tight cover.
Right. But then he wanted to do a variant of it, and he did that.
That's awesome. From Dark Knight Returns. Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
And if you look at it, the positioning of the character is the same, but he changed it to that. So he actually ended up working on Jawbreakers as one of the artists on a Kickstarter 2 years ago, or a year and a half. And I think that Kickstarter ended up at $400,000 or something crazy like that. So,
dude, doesn't that shit boggle your mind?
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to talk to you about.
Please. The numbers lay it on.
You look at them, you're like, what? But so yeah, I've been lucky with the artists that they actually are excited to be working with me because they like the material. And when you have somebody who likes it, they always go above whatever it is you want them to do because they're actually enjoying what they're doing. And that's been my luck with film, with the actors I work with, and with the artists I'm working with on all my issues. With Blackjack, which I'll give you a little pitch on that. I wanted to do a superhero, but I didn't want the capes and cowls like everybody else. I wanted it to be different. So I did a grounded science fiction based superhero whose powers change. So 1 week he might fly and then he can't. Next week he might be super strong and then he's not. So he takes a cross country trip to find other people like himself that have, I call it a sickness. to see why he is the way he is. It's like X-Files meets Unbreakable. So it leaves it open, you know, for me to try like every superpower in an issue if I want to try it and see what it would be like in real life, you know. But Ron Batchelor, I wanted a guy local. I said, well, let me get somebody from Jersey, because in Jersey, you know, when I say I need it, they understand what I'm saying. It's not going to go in the ether like things do in California. It's going to be like, Al needs it. He's either going to tell me he can do it or he can't. You know what I mean? So we're close enough to drive to each other's houses. So I
can always on his house one morning.
Yeah. So, but, yeah, he did Blackjack. I wrote 5 issues of Blackjack right out of the gate as like a movie where it gets wilder and wilder and wilder with each issue. And it's in each issue's in a different city. And I actually did research. I like my stuff grounded. What I liked about Marvel was when I was a kid, if I went to New York, which I did a lot because I was born in Philly, on a class trip in Catholic grade school, I'd look up and I'd see a building and it would look just like the building, the Daily
Bugle. Yeah.
Bugle. And it would be like, well, this, you know, it seems realer to me if you can ground it like that. So with Blackjack, I did research 1 issues in Chicago, and I wanted to know about the homeless shelters because he's on the run with a friend of his. He had to ditch his phone and all that stuff because they track you with that. So he's in places. I wanted to bring attention also to places that we don't see much in comics or in the media. So I researched homeless shelters in Chicago, and they're all around. I guess it's Lake Michigan.
Actually, I lived near one.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, it was.
Oh yeah, you're in Chicago.
Well, no, when I lived in the city, I now live in the suburbs. I'm in a very remote area, but
they're all around that. They're all around the water. So yeah. You know, I made an amalgamated, you know, version of that. But it was interesting to me. I researched in Texas after the hurricanes. They had to rebuild houses and things, so they would hire, you know, people, right, you know, without looking at their ID and all that. So he works down there for a while. So he basically goes like that through the whole country. So that was fun to me to, you know, move out of Jersey and Philly and kind of see the rest of the country. But I did 5 issues of that that Ron has that he can crank out, and he's good. I mean, if I tell him I need a Blackjack in 30 days and he's not already on a project, he can usually crank it out. And then he heard I was doing Werewolves of Brooklyn, which is introduced in Vampires 5. And he was like, dude, you know, I did a Jack the Ripper comic. And I was like, no. He's like, I'm way into horror. So he sent me his Jack the Ripper. And I was like, this is really beautiful artwork. So he did, I wrote Werewolves really big, the first issue. And I checked with the stores because I get a lot of feedback from stores and store owners. And they were like, well, you know, you're indie. Nobody's going to want like a 50-page comic in the store from an indie necessarily. You might want to split it in half or save it for the graphic novel. They'd rather have a graphic novel because a lot of the store owners told me as an indie person, they're always afraid you're not going to get to the next issue. They get hooked and then it disappears.
That is fact. That is exactly what retailers told me when I first started distributing Yisung Shin. That their first question was, okay, you got issue 1, when's issue 2 coming out?
Right.
If you want prominent placing, if you want to store your book, you got to keep producing.
Right. So I have 5 issues of Blackjack done that he can crank out over the next probably year. We'll say a year. Because the way it's working is I was trying to do Vampires, but Vampires would get slowed up. But I had people subscribing to the comic asking for the next issue of Vampires. So I came up with Blackjack, and they fell in love with that. So they're into that. And then Werewolves of Brooklyn. So it's kind of like I have a comic coming out maybe every quarter. You know, that's how I'd like to do it for the
and that's a lot, guys. For anyone who's watching the show now or later.
I'm saying if I can do that.
Well, you know, just getting to that point in general, even being able to release as an independent creator, no matter how much you're focused on the book, you're very lucky if you can keep it going. Like my buddy Ted Sikora, he's got multiple projects, but he's constantly releasing stuff. Yeah. But it's a lot of work. I mean, you have to stay on top of the artist. You got to make sure everything's coming together. And are you self-editing your books too?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, on top of that, you're the first and last guy seeing everything. Yeah. That's tough. You got to make sure you cross all your T's and dot all your I's.
Right.
Or all your lowercase J's. You know, I don't want to offend anybody who's got eye problems on this show, but you know, but yeah, you know, it's a process that requires a lot of actual time going into it to make sure that it is professional, because it's one thing to just get the artwork, but if the story doesn't hold up and if everything doesn't come together in harmony, then you got an issue. Making comics is a team sport. It really is. It is a team sport. Very few, even the people that can draw by themselves, they still need an editor, or they still need somebody to pass it off to, because the whole idea of the collaboration is what really makes it special. When it's just all you, there's things that are bound to get lost in translation, you know?
Well, I would prefer to delegate, but you know, when you're indie, you know, your money's only going to go so far.
I'm all about delegation. I say everybody do my job and just give me the check. And actually don't even give me the check. Just deposit it into my bank account for me. I don't want to do anything.
You'll get there.
It's all that, oh man, it's all too much work, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's rewarding in the idea that when you get people who really, really enjoy your work and they tell you how much they enjoy it, you know, I've been lucky enough to, you know, like you said, you did signings at the stores. A lot of the guys online, I recommend, you know, put it in your local store and get some feedback, because even if it's bad, it helps you improve what you're doing, you know. And a lot of what I've done with the comic has come directly from comic book store owners, you know, who are happy to see me because the book sells and I produce a quality product. You know, my job is to keep it at that level. Is, you know,
and selling out on the retail level is no easy feat. You know,
it's hard for me to say how it happens. I know, you know, I get it in the store, I post online.
Wait. What do you mean it's hard for you to say? You got a great book. That's why it's selling.
Well, that's what Mike said up in Silent Bob's. He goes, word of mouth on this book is great.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I run a little, I have up till Kickstarter, I hadn't been able to do squat, or I can say shit on this, right? I haven't been able to
say whatever you want. My fucking show, damn it. No,
I haven't been able to sell shit online.
Yeah.
I'm on mythology. I don't get many downloads. My films are actually streaming, and I get, you know, Amazon only gives you a few shekels. You have to stream like 1 million times to get any money out of Amazon.
You can get shekels.
But when they pop in, I'm always like, what? Some guy and like 20 people in England or Japan stream my movie, you know.
Wow, really?
Yeah, but when you're indie, you know, I don't have money to advertise or to market all the stuff I have. You know, I've done 100, I'm a musician too, and I scored my films, and I released in commercials, I released probably about 175 songs, different types of music, industrial, rock, you know.
I actually I'm really into soundtracks and original scores and all that. I'd love to hear some of your work.
Jose Luck is a pretty good soundtrack, because I tried to do a theme for each character. And then because I was I wrote and edited the movie, I actually tried to do a Prince like he did on Batman. I took a line from the character and put it at the beginning of each song to introduce the song. So
did Prince do that with the Batman movie?
Yeah, Jack Nicholson says something at the beginning of Bat Dance that they cut right out of the movie.
Oh, okay. So they cut it out of the movie.
Yeah, they cut a line out of the movie, like the actor doing the line, and then put it at the beginning of the song.
That is the best song too.
Yeah.
And they were playing it on Last Dance. Have you been watching that?
No, really? Well, they should.
Oh, dude, you got to see Last Dance.
Okay,
it's so good. It's about the Chicago Bulls, the championship.
Oh, okay. Oh,
and I've been telling people I'm still trying to get my co-writer on Eastern Chin to watch it. He's refusing.
I'll watch
it. I will call him out.
And
you must see it. Yeah, you have to see it, because it's all about the team and how they built everything up. And
I can respect that. I'm a Philly guy, so we're used to losing. But I always tell people, you know, I'm an old guy. I was around to see the Flyers win the Stanley Cup in, I guess, '74, when nobody had any teeth. The Sixers win with Dr. J and Moses Malone when they predicted how many games they were going to win. I think it was Moses said 4-5-4 at a press conference, he predicted the series, and that's how they won. I'm old enough to remember the Phillies winning with Pete Rose, the World Series, in I think it was 80 or 81. And then the Eagles go to the Super Bowl in 80 or 81 and fumbling right at the get-go to the Oakland Raiders, and then the game went downhill from there. So I've seen, you know, our city go through whatever, and I can look at a city like Chicago and say that's how it's done.
Yeah, especially when you look at the Chicago Cubs, which actually, when they won the World Series in 2016, they fucking rocked.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great, but you know, they had to fight not only the odds that were against them with the team that they were playing, because the star player of the Cleveland Indians was his last name was Kipnis. Okay. And I went to high school with his brother.
Wow.
He was like Kipnis himself was like 2 years younger than me. And he was the first person to hit a home run out, or not a home run, a grand slam. I think it was a grand slam, or hit the ball out of the park at Wrigley Field since Babe Ruth.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's fucking, you never think about those things, you know, like you grew up with is like
that's crazy, man.
A star athlete.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So let's talk about film for a minute.
Sure, I love
coming into the finish line here.
Okay.
Another sports reference.
Yeah.
So you made your own movie. How did you get that? How did you do that?
Yeah, that was kind of nutty too. I guess it was like 2003. I was working at GMAC Mortgage, which also was Dytech back then. If you remember those ridiculous Dytech commercials.
I do remember Dytech.
Yeah, not that Dytech guy again. The guy in the next cube next to me kept talking about a script he was working on. He was writing a short film. You know, I kept hearing about him. Like, this guy in his short film is driving me crazy. Get over here. Tell me about it. So we talked a little bit, and we realized we both knew a guy who used to work at GM. There's a bug here. He used to work at GMAC, who went to film school. So he was a manager at a mortgage place that went to film school. So between the three of us, we kept talking, and we were like, we're going to do a short film. None of us knew anything about doing a short film. We started shooting it. The first day, our two leads, married couple, quit and left the project.
No way. Why? What happened?
Well, we suspect, and we don't know, that the script, you know, a short film is not a big script, right? But since I was a producer, the writer was a producer, the writer would meet an actor, become friendly with them, and kind of, you know, because you like the actor, you make the part bigger. Well, everything kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to where it was getting out of control. And on the set, the woman was very attractive and young. And there was a scene where one of the guys, the movie was called Manja, and it was in an Italian restaurant. So it had a lot of caveman style references. One of the guys was leering at her, and her breasts were kind of not showing, but, you know, towards her, flirting. And then his mom smacks him in the head, you know, the Italian mom. And we feel that when that happened initially, it wasn't in the script, and we kind of wrote it in. I didn't, but the writer wrote it in on the spot. That offended the husband. We didn't know. You know, you don't know when people quit a project. You just know they quit. So that was a complete debacle. I mean, everything about it, looking back, you just say it was just a mess. I literally looked at the film from that short film that we shot, because we would shoot rehearsals and everything. And I was going to put out a documentary called How Not to Make a Movie, because and I was going to do like a talk at the beginning saying, look, this is what we started doing, and this is what happened. This is what you should be doing to finish a movie. And we did the opposite. So I have more film from that short film that we never finished than all the full-length films that I've shot. And I've shot maybe 4 or 5. So I got a taste for it. But when you shoot a movie and you want to shoot it, like I said earlier, like a Spielberg or somebody like that, you need money. You need this guy, that guy, that guy. That's where my indie spirit came to fruition, because Apple had an online editing for their Final Cut for free. You could teach yourself. So I sat up all night teaching myself how to edit. And this was after the movie collapsed. I felt bad that we had shot something and that the actors, because when you work with indie people, especially actors, they're not making much money, but what they want is a credit. So they can say, I did this. And if you don't finish it, they don't get a credit. So it's all for naught. And I felt guilty. I was like, I'm going to make a promise from now on. When I do a project, I'm going to finish the project. I'm going to spec it out to the point where it gets finished and I can get it to an audience. Me, not me and MGM, me. So then I reorganized the group, kept the director, the writer, and I had a falling out, but we got back together again later. He's a good guy. He actually did a really good movie separate from what we did. But if you let things get out of control, you're never going to finish a movie. Movies, everybody loves movies. Everybody loves making movies. If me and you walked in a place in Jersey and said, we need to use this place, we're going to shoot a movie, they would roll out the red carpet. Oh, it's free advertising. People in this country and around the world just love the idea of movies. So there's a lot you can do that I didn't know then. I mean, we shot it in a studio, but we couldn't afford a real studio. So it ended up looking like a bad play. Whereas if you're shooting in an Italian restaurant, just go to an Italian restaurant. That's what you want. I mean, we're on the West Coast. That was the thing about The Sopranos that David Chase always said. He said, yeah, they wanted me to shoot The Sopranos in California. And I told him, I can't recreate North Jersey in California. North Jersey is the way it looks. We'll just use what we have. And that gives things authenticity. So from that, I formed my media company with my wife and the director, Chris Kearney, 3 Hedge Productions. And my wife had a friend who was starting a company and needed commercials. He said, hey, can you guys do it? So I ended up doing this 2004, 4 Comcast commercials that ran on Comcast. And they were just, short little things with so many actors I'd worked with previously on the other project. And I got to know a lot of actors between Philly and New York. And then the director came up with an idea. He said, they do these 48-hour film festivals. We should do them because it helps you with your chops, like filming. So the 48-hour film festival is in every major city almost in the world. It's weird if you're not. It's almost like the stuff I'm seeing with us comic book stuff. If you're not involved in it, you might not even know what's going on. Like when I tell people about these Kickstarters, they go, the guy made $90,000 on a Kickstarter with a comic book? They don't even believe me. But the 48-hour film festival is one of those like secrets that people in the film business know about. And what would happen, Omri, you'll love this. You and I want to shoot a film, right? We sign up for the Philadelphia, we'll say Chicago 48-hour film festival. We go to a restaurant or wherever they meet on the Friday of the weekend. They put out a hat. We pick out a genre, Western, romance, crime noir. They give you a line, they give you a character name, and they give you a prop that has to be included in the film. You have until Sunday, usually around Sunday evening, maybe 3 o'clock to 6, to turn in a complete short film. It could be as long as, I think, 7 or 8 minutes with all those elements, and they'll show it in the film festival in a theater.
I actually think I should do that.
Dude, it's a lot.
I should actually do that. It's a good way to break into understanding and I used to make short films, and I was like, when I was a kid, I used to do it with my friends. We used to fuck around.
It's a great exercise.
Yeah.
I literally would put out an email to my friends or, tell them on Facebook, hey, I'm shooting a movie. Anybody who ever wanted to act, it's a short film. So it's not going to be too taxing. At the same time, I have professional actors that are friends of mine that could, if they had the time, they could step in too. But with this, you're going to have to write, usually on a Friday night. Once I get my genre, I would write until the morning, or I would have 3 people who write a script. We meet in the morning. We all read the scripts and see which one was good, if I had that opportunity to have more than one script. And then we pick a location, and then we get to film it. I shot a lot of them in my house, but I shot one at my mom's house, one at, around the neighborhood, whatever. And the last one I did was in 2014 with my kids, who were, I think they were 4 and 8 then. And I did a detective noir with my kids as kid detectives called Mystery of the Hedge Fund Manager, because I had to include hedge fund. So it literally is like we're watching a detective movie, And the one looks at me and goes, "Gee, Dad, we could be detectives." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." Next thing you know, there's a knock on the door, and I turn the color into black and white, and it's one of my actress friends, Stephanie Milan, who is dressed like a 40s. You know, the dame would always walk into the detective's office with a big problem, and she was the dame. And then my kids had fedoras, and it's a fun little movie. They actually were both nominated for Best Young Actors.
That's awesome.
But they're not.
You did good raising them.
Yeah, of course, they're not interested in acting, even though they're brilliant at it. You know, but it was a good exercise, and from that, I wanted to do a bigger movie. So I literally sat in my car on my lunch hour for mortgages and wrote Jose Luck over like a month. And then I ran it by the director and also my friend Vince Valentine, who ended up starring in it, that I met at the movie that crashed in 2004. And we shot Jose Luck in, I think it was 2010 in the fall, over a month on the weekends because everybody has a day job. And it got into the Philadelphia Independent Film Festival, which is one of the top 20 film festivals in the world. And I thought that's how you did it. You shoot it, it gets in. It's totally not how you did it. I was totally lucky. It was a miracle I got in. I look at it now and I say, oh, I could have done better because you never have enough money when you're indie, you know. But I was able, with my work, I'm happy that I can get it to people because when you put something on a festival, you know, a bunch of people who like festivals see it. And then that's it. And you can go from festival to festival to festival, and the general public never sees it. You might win an award, but you want people to see it and enjoy it. So Amazon, before they started even streaming, offered independent people the opportunity to send them the movie. They'd put it on DVD, and you can make it on demand.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was before streaming. So when streaming hit, I said to myself, well, Amazon, if they get into it, they could be number 2 or 3 eventually. So I got all my stuff up there, and then Amazon ended up being number 2. So that's why my stuff is streaming, because it's up there and it's, you know, whatever. Now they took a couple of my movies off because what happens is they need independent film until they get money. Then when they get money, they can afford to go make a Lord of the Rings TV series. And
right.
That bumps the independent films, but they have kept Jose Luck up there, which I appreciate.
I'll definitely check it out. We're out of what? Oh, you'll send me the link. Yeah, for sure. We're out of time now, so I want to know. Why are you sorry? Thank you so much. You were saying such interesting things. Do me a favor. Give us one last shout out. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us how we can support you. And
Vampires of NJ on Instagram, and Vampires in New Jersey on Facebook. And the Kickstarter is up. We're 2 weeks in. We're hitting that saggy part of the Kickstarter. But I do have a couple of more tricks up my sleeve, hopefully to get us on the path again, move up a little bit. The Kickstarter funding in 13 hours was very exciting. People who read that first issue really do like it. So it usually hooks them. So if I can get people to read it, I think they'll enjoy it. And I'm trying to make a consistent, interesting storyline that ramps up every single time to make it even more crazy. I always call it, it's like an 80s R-rated movie. So there's a little sex, a little violence, and you never know what's going to happen. And my dialogue in the comic is like a Kevin Smith mixed with Tarantino. So I try and keep things interesting. And thanks for having me on, Omri.
Hey man, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Hang out backstage, and I'll be right there. All right.
Anytime you need me, just call.
Yeah, my man. All right, hang on. What a great episode. This guy, he knows his stuff. He's been around. He's doing it, and he's just another example of why you should go out and do it too. So have a great weekend, guys. We got a Memorial Day this weekend, so be happy, be healthy, be safe, and enjoy yourselves. And I'll see you next week. We got brand new guests coming on, and we're going to have some fun. So I'll see you then. And until that time comes, onward to victory.